studied. Oh, good, we're recording.
Oh, I forgot about
Got
that.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I started in architecture and design in school, and I stuck to the design side and got my degree there. Um, I started as an interior designer at a hospitality firm just before the recession. So, circa 2008, and had to just kind of swerve and get creative and look for other opportunities in my industry. And in that, I found some mentors in the industry that led me to furniture. So it was always really a big passion of mine. I loved furniture design. In school, I really loved just like the history of it and everything. So I was excited to kind of pursue that as a career. And I worked at a furniture dealer, which is like a partner to the manufacturers. So Steelcase, if you want to think of as BMW, we have a BMW dealer. So we have a Steelcase dealer that actually sells the furniture. And they have designers and they have salespeople. And I worked in both roles, sometimes at the same time. And I got a really neat taste of what sales was like, and it was really fun. So um, I was actually at a Steelcase dealer, and that's kind of how I come full circle to working at Steelcase as the manufacturer. But I'd say what I really love about this side of the industry is that it's very verse. Like there's a lot of different avenues that you can take and from a design perspective and really apply like your different skills without feeling like you've lost creativity. And another big pro is that work-life balance that some of you mentioned you really like. So I technically work from home, but I have a showroom where I love to go work because it's beautiful. Any of you are welcome to tour it anytime, just give me a shout. But it's just definitely a different structure of being an 8 to 5 and logging all of your design hours, which is what I was used to before. And then you're also doing really fun entertaining. I personally call on architects and designers. And what's really great about being on that side is that I am working with you guys, a lot of you, and really getting to see like how creative you are and really play off ideas that you have and help just like really build them up and like give you some ideas that really support your design. So I'm not necessarily not being creative, but I'm really supporting you as a creator. And then there's something else I wanted to tell you guys. I know I'm just blanking on it, but I wanted to kind of give you guys a list of a couple of things that like avenues if you wanted to pursue something on this side of the business. There's design and engineering, which is an entire category. So product design, industrial design, custom design studios, model building, if you really love that tactile side of the business. And then in sales, I'm an A&D manager, so architect and design manager, which is really a consultancy. So I'm a workplace consultant. But if you really love like vertical markets like education or healthcare, you can specialize in those and really live like right there in that vertical market. What's really, really cool about being that on that consultant side is that I have meetings with CEOs of really big companies where I think if I were a designer, especially on the junior designer side, you don't get to go in those meetings. And so I get to really consult and brainstorm and make change in really large companies that are influencing the way we all do business. So that's something that I think is just kind of mind blowing. And I feel like a small fish in a very like large pond of smart genius like companies. So I'm really excited just to like get a seat at the table sometimes. And some other things that you can do, like we have some like custom interior design studios that are more like hand in hand. And then if you love leadership, there's a lot of opportunity for leadership in sales. So those are just kind of like a few little things. And then of course the dealer side of things, which is a little bit more into the nitty gritty, where I live a little bit more conceptual, high level for projects. You can get a little bit more like down and dirty with the dealer, which is really fun.
All right, cool. Thank you, Megan. I
Yeah.
appreciate all of that. It sounds, yeah, it sounds interesting. So Sandra, we're going to move to you. Obviously, you working for a contractor. Really interested to hear how you came from being an architect to working for Hensel Phelps.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Sandra. I'm with Hensel Phelps. I've been there for 27 years, and thank you, Carol, for the compliment. I actually had an 11-year career going before I went to Hensel Phelps, so I'm a lot older than you think I am. So I graduated from Berkeley in the early 80s, and I worked as an architect, and I loved it. I loved the all-nighters, the weekends, just pouring myself into architecture. And I was very free-spirited at the time, and yeah, go Bears. I packed my car one day and I just moved to Seattle for an adventure. And before I found a job, I was exploring the city, and I walked onto the UW campus and I said, I love this campus. I have to go to school here. I don't know what I'm going to study. And I ended up working for the Callison Partnership up there, and it was the absolute best firm to have a job with. And while I was working there, and I'm 7 years into my career, and I don't understand how things are built. And I was always depending on that old guy next to me who, really understood how buildings were built, and getting help with details and pulling them out of the CAD libraries. And CAD was brand new at that time. And so I just really felt the need to go spend a couple of years out in the field so I can come back and be a better, smarter architect. But they didn't let my level out on the sites to do the CA services. And so I had remembered that feeling I had walking onto the UW campus, and I ended up going back to school, and I got another degree in construction management. So I had every intention of going to work for a contractor just for a couple of years. And when I got to the contracting side of things, and keep in mind, I'm not a designer. If I were to continue in architecture, I would have gone the project management way, because I knew I didn't have it in me to be a designer. I was a production person. So when I got to the contractor side, I really fell in love with the action, the people I was working with. I really enjoyed less hours and not pulling all-nighters anymore. But I will say I had to kind of laugh when I saw the poll on work-life balance, because if people are looking for better work-life balance, you could probably take a potty break right now, because you guys work a lot as architects. We work a lot as contractors too. And I would have to say that the work-life balance is really difficult, but I don't call it work-life balance because I love my job so much and I spend a lot of time at work. It's doing something that I really love. So, I just look at the full picture of it. I've raised 2 children through all this, and I've never looked back. I enjoy this industry. I still get to work with designers and consultants. And I think Megan mentioned it. It's about leadership, teamwork, and just communication. And whether you're on the design side or the owner side or the contractor side, what I really love is finding that high functioning team that can work together to get our projects done. And very interestingly, it only takes one person to not want to be part of that team that could really spin a lot of chaos into our programs. And so everybody has to show up working toward that goal. And I just have loved the place that I ended up. I kind of stumbled into it. I took a little detour I miss architecture because I really loved it while I did it. But I don't regret a single thing. And Hensel Phelps has been so good to me. I came on to Hensel Phelps when there weren't very many women in the industry. And I have always felt at home there and felt very respected by the people that I work with, the clients that I've worked with, and it's been a really good place. And the industry has changed so much. Our salary staff is made up of over 30% women now, and it's really fun to see that. And these are really just outstanding women that we have in the industry, whether it's with Hensel Phelps or with our subcontractors and even our craft. And it's just been so rewarding.
That's cool. That's a very phenomenal statistic, because I would have not thought that it was that high. So that's really great.
The industry is not that high. Our company is that high because we've really worked at it. And Alicia could probably have a good visibility to what our industry is like and what the other companies look like. I'm, not exactly sure, but I belong to a lot of women's network groups, and I know that we're leading the charge in those areas.
Yeah, that's terrific. Thank you, Sandra. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to move on to our next panelist, Leslie. If you would tell us your story and how you ended up where you are.
So I was in architecture for, longer than I can remember, probably about 20 years. I started in New York doing low-income housing. I moved out here, went to grad school, went to the other school, UCLA. But I'm not going to say go Bruins because I'm a Bulldog at heart, Yale Bulldog at heart. And worked for a while, bounced around from firm to firm, tried to stay away from big firms because I thought I would kind of get swallowed up, and my personality was not such that I wanted to do the corporate thing and suck up and learn how to play golf to get ahead. I just wanted to do really cool work. In 2003, I landed at Giamatti Architecture, which is now NAC, and had an amazing time. Helena Giamatti, who I don't know if any of you guys know her, she's an amazing person. She's an incredible mentor, and kind of took my architecture career in a direction that I did not really expect it to go, and wound up being an associate principal. So I was director of project management. I was director of operations for the firm. I had a couple of clients that I took care of specifically. And I found myself kind of, being leadership and not doing design, and not even really, not doing architecture, but being leadership. I had an opportunity to go sit on a job site for a year. We were doing a project with AWA+D. We had a very difficult contractor, not Hensel Phelps, which I had a great experience with Hensel Phelps and at Long Beach Unified. They were amazing. It was not Hensel Phelps. And just, I got to, wear jeans every day, wear construction boots every day, and a hard hat and a vest. And, somebody would say, hey, I don't think this detail works, so let's go look at it. So I'd go out there with the OAR and go out there with the contractor and, go back to the trailer and sketch things up, and really, got to see how the building really gets put together. When you do schools, you do a lot of drawings specifically to satisfy the Division of State Architect. That is not necessarily how the building gets built, but that's what you put on the drawings to get that stamp from DSA. But then you get out in the field and there's how you really build it. So after a year in the field, it's like, see, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to build buildings. When I was a little girl growing up in New York, I wanted to be a construction worker. And back then they're like, silly girl, girls aren't construction workers. Don't go sit down somewhere. So here was me as close at the time as possible to being, being that construction worker. And I really loved it. So I got back to the office. I was very unsatisfied with what I was doing. I went to go pitch a client, get a project. And it was somebody that I had worked with a long time ago. Actually, my first real architecture job, I call it. And so I made my pitch and he goes, "Oh, that's why you're here?" And I was like, "Yeah, why do you think I'm here?" He said, "Well, I've been looking for you. I lost track of you. I've been looking for you. I want you to come help me build my $80 million student services building." Yes, please, and thank you. We kind of danced around that because the timing was not right, but we danced around that for about a year. And it broke my heart to leave NAC because I loved the people there. I loved my boss. Wayne is an amazing person. But I just wasn't really happy doing what I was doing. So I went to work for Santa Monica College. I did that for a couple of years. My boss there was making noise about retiring, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to leave before the job leaves out from under me. I called a friend who had been the OAR on the project that I sat on for a year. We became very close, and I said, "Hey, get me a job." And 3 weeks later, I had an offer. And so I jumped, I went to Cumming. I have done a lot of things at Cumming. I've done pure construction management. I have done bond program management, which is helping the owner decide what to build. They get a bond, they pass a bond. They go to the voters and say, "We want this money and we want to do these things." And then it's our job to kind of help them spend that money responsibly. That meant helping them choose architects. That meant helping them program the actual project that they said they were going to do. That meant figuring out the timing for doing all of these projects, because of my relationship with DSA, shepherding, helping the architects get through the DSA process. So I've done that. I have written facilities master plans for school districts. I have written helped to write education specifications for school districts. And currently I am with LAUSD planning projects. LAUSD has what's called asset management, which is all the new construction. And then they have M&O, which is projects like roofing, paving. We're reopening a bunch of early education centers, which is a very rewarding project. School board members have pet projects. I work on those, so I help plan those projects. And yes, I too, like Sandra, miss architecture. And I miss kind of using that part of my brain and that, the language and the environment. And so a few years ago, I ran for the board of AIALA. And so now I get my architecture yayas back. I get to talk architecture and be around, practicing architects. And that's been really fun as well. So that's my story.
Thank you, Leslie. It is a really interesting story. So finally, last but not least, again, Alicia, why don't you tell us how you ended up where you are at Public Works?
I'm giggling a little bit because as you get to me, I'm still in the office. That's when housekeeping comes around and there's a vacuum outside my door.
Yeah, so, there you go.
But anyways, so thank you so much for letting me be a part of this conversation tonight. I think it's just fantastic to get so many different individuals here with so many different representations of the industry. So I consider myself very lucky to be a part of this. So thank you, Carol, and thank you, everybody. So as Carol mentioned earlier, I'm with Los Angeles County. So I essentially act as the owner's rep. So I am sort of the owner, the stakeholders, decision maker for a lot of aspects of work. But I came into this through architecture. I went to Cal Poly Pomona for architecture. So I have my bachelor's of architecture, and I identify a lot with what Sandra said. I'm not bad at design, but I recognize that there are folks in the industry that are far more talented in that area than I was. And I was always very interested in how does the building, actually get built, and how do you find those places for the things that you need? I would at times be frustrated to come in and have a crit. Everybody's got their stuff on the board, and there's some phenomenal looking designs, but where's the bathroom, right? How did you meet the program? Because what I see on the board is beautiful, but I don't see how you're going to get a conference center with an open roof, right? That was the sort of thing that would play out in my head. And I knew that project management was more along my lines. That's what I was trying to figure out. And so I did my run, if you will, in architecture. I worked for firms coming out of college, doing a lot of mostly retail architecture. So a lot of entertainment venues, movie houses, retail. And it served me well in the sense that I came away with a very good understanding of what revenue generating work motivated people to do, motivated owners to do, motivated contractors to do. The quicker you could get a project done and make it to market, even 2 months ahead of schedule, meant revenue coming in quicker than the owner had anticipated. Well, the owner's going to pay for that. The owner's going to pay for change orders. The owner's going to pay for, whatever it takes to get this done. And then I went to the county. I had an opportunity to go and serve. And I mean this really as a point of comparison, because I do think the work that any public agency does really is a different set of offerings back to the industry. So coming into the County of Los Angeles, which essentially is a government entity, you come into it with a mindset that says, let's get this done. We got to make the owners happier, in this case, stakeholders. And what helped me is when I did a master's in public administration, things started to line up. We were not necessarily revenue driven, but we are policy driven. And those are two different motivations. They're two different ways to make decisions. So I point that out because, I know a lot of the folks here, you deal with the governments, you deal with the county, you deal with building and safety, and it can be lost in the overall intent to say, oh, it's red tape. And I won't take that away from it. There is a lot of red tape, but it is also sort of the arm and the structure that we put to the agent, to the industry, to say there is a standard. There is some element beyond maybe what I said, private industry. There's an element that says there's something for a public audience, whether you're there to, when you deal with retail and you deal with commercial, there is an owner, there is a revenue generating basis, but there is at large a public, a tax paying public, that has services, that encounters these environments that we design, that we put out there, that we fund, that we ask all of you as industry partners to take part in that. It used to be sort of when I came to the county, we were into this philosophy that said no ugly buildings, because we had become known for cookie cutter. How dry can we make it look? How basic can it be? How ugly can the building be? Well, there's your government building. And thankfully, we have really changed that in the last 20 years. It is about offering the community back something of value, offering them something of perceived beauty. Why should that not be a part of what we build for the public? So, I've come into public work now, and for me, it was this great mixture. It brought my interest in architecture, my interest in design, and it mixed it with what I almost did a second major in, which is political science. So I am very much involved in a political entity. No matter how you slice it, you can say it's project management, it's construction, but we deal with politics, as I'm sure all of you do. But we essentially are the arm of the county that responds to the Board of Supervisors. If the board has a policy, if the board has an ambition that is reflected by the constituents that elected them, that's going to find its way into the programs. It's going to find its way into what we build. And so we do deal with funding. We do deal with, unfortunately, the delay that can come when you don't have support for a project, when you don't have support for philosophy behind the projects. But I've come to accept that as part of the design. It's part of the way we've decided we're going to work as a collective. And you need to give it time for it to develop and for that voice to come through loud and clear. And Carol can speak to this on some behalf, because she was involved with us when we did the jails program. And that has been a huge component of rethinking. You know, you talk about public policy, you talk about change in thinking, and where does that come through? You know, when Carol and I were working together, it came through in this rethink of, what's a jail? What do we use them for? Who's going there? Is that the right place for them? So all of this came through in a way that in the built environment, we've stopped to say, what is a jail? What's it for? And the county took a step back to say, we're not ready to go forward with this project. There's a larger thought out there, and that's being reflected in what we build, what we spend money on. So that's my vacuum out there. You know, I just want to reflect, and I want to share that what I've chosen to do with my career, it still builds off that architectural background, and I think it's served me well. It's found a way to incorporate maybe those soft skills that political science, politics comes in. And, you know, I have to echo back to, you know, Sandra, so much of what you said I identify with. It is that team building element. Whether you come from the design side, the construction side, the owner's side, the supply side, like Megan, you're dealing with a group of people. And what's fantastic about, I think, the project management aspect, every project is a different team. Every project is a new set of players. Every project is that new opportunity for great relationships. And yes, for that one bad apple that can send it all down south. But it is this dynamic of working with human relationships that I think any one of these industries, it's critical to develop those relationship skills. So thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. That was, yeah, that was really good. It's this has all been really interesting. I want to encourage anybody who is listening to this, if you have questions for the panelists, please, we'll be monitoring the chat, and put your question out there or raise your hand and we'll call on you or whatever. One of the things that I wanted to kind of ask the panelists is that, you know, we're trained as designers and we're trained as architects, and sort of, you know, you've got one bent when you're going to school and all that stuff, but there's still a skill set that you are using as a designer in your current work. And so I'm going to ask Leslie, what are the skills that you think lend themselves to do, like as an architect, or you want to change your career or you want to do that? What are the skills that you find that you need to do what you do?
Well, I mean, I think kind of the basis of an architectural education is creative problem solving, right? I mean, a building, if you break it down, a building is a problem. I need a roof over the conference room, and I need bathrooms for, you know, the 50 people that I expect to be in the building at any given time, and, you know, sustainability issues. They're all kind of pieces of a problem. And as architects, we try to creatively solve those problems. I think that what I do, what I've been doing since I left formal architecture, is still creatively solving problems. Be that when I was at Santa Monica College, working with contractors, you know, politics plays into that, because you've got professors who don't want you to be constructing next to them while they're trying to teach, and, you know, trying to figure out where to move people and how to make that work. Now, creatively building teams to get these projects done, be it, you know, repaving an entire school site, or creating a new early education center, or doing a little STEAM lab at a school. They're all, you know, so it's all kind of still, to me, it's still creative. And it's still, you know, looking at all the pieces of the problem and how do we solve this problem?
I like that. I like the problem solving. I'm going to move to Sandra. Same question. You being an architect and trained as an architect, do you find, sort of what skills do you have that, what would you tell somebody if they wanted to work for a contractor? What are the skill sets that you think are important to sort of make that switch from, architect to contractor?
Well, I touched on it earlier today, and I said leadership, teamwork, and communication skills. I keep boiling it down to those three things. My kids are college age, and with all the pressures of AP classes and getting into the right college, and I'm not the Chinese tiger mom. I always told my kids, as long as you try your hardest, that's what I expect from you. And if I could teach my kids those three things, good communication, leadership, and teamwork, they'll be unstoppable. And I think that applies to everything, whether you're in architecture, construction, on the ownership side, being a doctor, being an attorney, pick your profession. It's about being a good human being and collaborating with people. Everything requires teamwork. I remember my daughter came home from 5th grade, a group project, and she says, "Mom, I hate this. I'm doing all the work." I said, "Welcome." That's going to be the rest of your life. So it's good to learn now when you're in 5th grade. And, I've been having fun working with young folks and the art of motivation and doing something together toward a common goal. So it's a lot of soft skills, not necessarily the technical skills. If you could get through architecture school, you're smart enough and you work hard enough. And then after that, what do you do with that? And I think it's learning the soft skills and finding yourself in the part of the industry that you're gonna really get energy from, and taking that, whether it's working for a furniture manufacturer or a county agency, you can take those things and just go kill it. So I think it's the soft skills. A real quick story. Over 20 years ago, we started gathering the women of Hensel Phelps together for women's leadership seminars. And I've always been on the organizing committees, and we always focused on soft skills, but we would have to rebrand them into something technical to get them past the board so that they would accept that the women were learning something that was going to help them in their job. And I've seen over time, these soft skill trainings are now our project manager trainings. We're teaching soft skills to everybody in our company because they've come to understand that, that's the piece that's going to turn us from good to great. And I'm speechless at how we've evolved over time.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Well, so Megan, I know that you are in a sort of completely different, avenue from this. And it sounds like, what skills, obviously you're doing something that you really love as well, but what are the skills, the skills that you say interior designers or architects would need to do, or if they wanted to move into the part of the industry you're working in now?
Yeah, I would say that as designers and architects, that you guys are really focused on human-centered design. Especially as women, you come from a place of empathy, and that's what I do. Like everything that Steelcase manufactures, that we present in our research, everything comes from a human perspective. And so I think just coming in with a lens that really focuses on not just the building, but like the holistic perspective of how, place and people and technology and all of those things are all interconnected, and how they support work or productivity in whatever market you're in. I think that's going to be really important. What Leslie said about like critical thinking, being creative, and being able to analyze situations from, different points of view before, coming to a conclusion. And I think that's very important in this industry and in my role. And then listening is a really big part of it. So I think as architects and designers, you spend time with clients, you spend time understanding their needs, their goals, and really like driving your design and creativity around what is going to make their business function differently and their people come together more, and all of those things. And so just having that listening skill is going to be very important. Being a consultant, even for me working with you, me listening to you and how I can support you on the sales side. It's very important.
Interesting. So Alicia, I know that you already sort of touched on this a little bit about what you bring and sort of the skill sets and everything that you bring. Do you find that being a woman in this industry, that you're seeing a lot more women involved in construction on both sides as owners and as owners reps and all that in the industry on working for public works?
I mean, I came into the industry, I think we had our foot in the door, right? It wasn't uncommon to see women in design, maybe not, the majority, but to see women at least was something that was not too uncommon. That the numbers have gotten bigger is fantastic, but I think it speaks to, we talk about soft skills here, and you try and tread lightly on these without being sexist, right? But at the same time, there are some inherent things that, because of our conditioning, I do think women have just been given that opportunity to speak more, right? When I had my children a while ago, the new term in parenting was use your words, right? Don't hit, right? Use your words. And I thought it was such a ridiculous term, but that's essentially what we're all doing. Use your words, right? Use your words. So to the point of how has it benefited and if I've seen differences across construction and maybe from the owners, I just think there's been such an emphasis on those communication skills now, that it isn't about gender anymore. It's about trying to get a message through so that you're communicating to the right audience, the right message, and everybody can buy onto it, or at least understand what they're not buying onto. And I kind of want to dovetail off the first question about what are those skill sets that you bring from architecture. And I do want to point out to everybody, I don't think anybody goes into architecture thinking you're going to come out with another degree in presentation skills, right? Between the crits, explaining my idea, to go from graphic to, what do I say? It's on the board, it's a picture, can't you see it? You have to come out of there with some level that is an elevated skill set than most other degrees that I would say, because you really are put over the coals to explain your idea. And those presentation skills will serve you to no end. You'll come out and it's about who wants to go in front of a crowd? Everybody pulls back. And as that architectural background you have, you're ready to say, I'll do it. It can't be worse than the crit that I got humiliated on, right? So there really is like, you come out of there with almost like a minor in presentation skills.
I like that. I think that goes to what Sandra was talking about, communication and just being able to again, communicate your ideas. Well, I want to open, we've got 10 minutes left. I really want to open this up to our audience. If anybody has questions, if you want to ask any of our panelists something in more detail about what they do or how they got to where they are, please, now's the time. So if anybody has questions, please, let's ask them now. Magdalena, that'd be
okay. Great. So I have a question to whoever wants to answer it. So how much do you think a random chance plays with the path you are you embarked on? And I don't mean this in, just that, as a kind of bad thing, or, just it's kind of a little bit like this. We all know that I am from Poland originally, and I am in Los Angeles right now. So you can imagine that the path to get there was quite something and full of surprises. So would you share some, just based on your experience, opportunities which you took and opportunities which you passed, because and why, and kind of, say any lessons for our 0 to 5 year audience, if the opportunities come their way, whether there are any anything they should look out for or shouldn't look out for?
I would say trust your gut. If you're in a place where you don't feel right, you should listen to yourself and seek other opportunities. The first firm I walked for the longest time, when I had interviews, you know how they ask you, well, why did you leave such and such place? And there was one place in particular, and I said, because I hit my head on the glass ceiling when I walked in the door. And I felt that. And one of my person who graduated a year ahead of me, we sat across from each other and we made a pact, like, we're out of here in 6 months. And I was out in 4 and she was out in like 6.5. We just knew that was not the place for us. I didn't know what the place was, but I knew that was not the place for me. And so I took that chance and I left. And I mean, it was a job, like, it was back to the whole CAD thing. I did CAD as an undergrad in the 80s. I got crap at UCLA for wanting to do CAD. Like, oh, you can't do that. Like, yeah, I can. We have a whole computer lab full. I'm not building a model. I know how to build a model. I have an undergraduate degree in architecture. You're wasting my time. Here, I'm going to go do this. And so somebody remembered that and said, hey, you do CAD, would you come work for us? I'm like, it was a previous recession. It was not the 2008 recession. It was the big one before that. Yeah, sure, I'll take a chance. I don't know anything about this firm, but hey, they want me because I know how to do CAD. And like I said, walked in and was like, yeah, I'm not long for this place, and took off. So, got what I needed to get out of it and learned some things, totally learned some things, but knew that I didn't need to be there for very long.
Well, we do have a question in the chat, and that is, it says, this is for all. It says, I noticed project management skills being used frequently. Did you learn it informally or did you take classes?
I can just answer that I learned everything on the job. I feel like you learn so much about how to prepare for school. Like in school, you learn how to prepare for a job, and it gets you in the mindset of being a critical thinker and coming from a place of empathy and all those things I said before. You learn those skills, but when you get down to like jobs, like you learn it on the job. So just, at capacity, but keep saying yes to opportunities where they're different, so that you just can keep learning more. Can I also say something? The question that Leslie had, I wanted to also just mention, like, don't be scared to ask people to lunch, to coffee, to just say, hey, like, I want to pick your brain. Everyone is just, maybe they're busy at the moment, but everyone is really willing to talk to you. So if you're like, I'm interested in your business, keep asking to meet and or a phone call or something, because you'll learn so much. And if anything, if you're like, that is not a job for me, thank you for telling me, if you get to that point, you've at least made a connection in the industry. You have someone down the line that you're going to end up working with. It is a very small industry in Los Angeles. I don't know if you guys have experienced that yet, but it is very small, even though this is a big city. So just stay connected to people, and ask the questions that you need to get to where you need to go.
That's really good advice.
I'd like to answer that question.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth said, go Bears. Did you go to Cal too? And I tease people that my education was about, I studied architecture, and we talked about how the color blue made us feel. And my education was very theoretical and conceptual, and taught me how to learn. It taught me nothing practical. I had to learn all of that on the job. And it helps when you come from a place where you're a pretty well-organized person and, kind of like things in boxes and be able to work from lists. But as far as project management goes, it was all learned on the job.
Agreed. I know that a lot of philosophy in colleges is they will teach you the design, and you do a lot of theoretical design because the assumption is that you're going to learn the project management and the technical stuff at a firm. Sometimes you will and sometimes you won't, but you're definitely not going to learn the theoretical stuff most of the time at a firm. So I know that that's a philosophy. Here we have another question from the chat. It says, how do you go about finding job listings with contractors seeking to hire someone with an architect background? Is there something similar to AIA job listing or architect job listings? We're going to throw that one to Sandra. Are there contractors that actively search for somebody with an architectural background?
I don't think you're going to find ads from contractors looking for architects. Contractors look for people with certain talents and experience, and architects can fill that role. But I've never heard of a contractor specifically out looking for architects. A lot of us have design managers or pre-construction managers that the architects fill that role. But in that case, they would be looking for design managers and pre-construction managers. And those are probably the key positions you should look for as an architect. Now, if you're somebody with 0 to 3 or 5 years experience and you want to do contracting, I wouldn't necessarily present myself as an architect. I would come with architecture background, wanting to get into the contracting business. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of room for that. And I would say that most contractors today are hiring right now. Good people.
Excellent. So speaking of that, I know I told Alicia this when we were talking, but now is your chance to, if you're hiring, now is your chance to put forth, because I know that Alicia always will talk about Public Works is looking for good people and people who are who want to work for the government, being an owner's rep. And I would highly recommend that as a career path. I spent some time working for the federal court, and it was really a great opportunity to learn a different side of the industry, and I really enjoyed it. So,
if I could, Carol, I really want to take the moment to really put out there, and this is probably what all the other panelists are experiencing too. There is a very large labor shortage that is going to affect us into the future. When we talk about construction projects today, we can't find enough people to man the jobs we're going to need to build these buildings that are coming up. We talk about a lot of federal funds coming our way now with what's been going on in Washington. We are really in a serious situation with trying to get the word out to even younger people that construction is a very valid and a good livelihood. And I'm speaking as a mother here. I have 2 boys myself that are all college age. And I speak personally. I think we've oversold college. I really do. I think college is great for those people who know what they want to do, and it's the time is right for them, go. but there is a population of people out there who are coming out and they're not ready for college. College may not be their thing. And the trades, the unions, the training centers, they're all great locations too, to put a focus on and say, maybe you want to do something in construction and you're going to take that union position or that journeyman position, that entry level. These are good paying jobs that will pay you straight out of high school to go into training, and you'll come out not owing money, but making money. And I just want to take the opportunity to emphasize that that portion of our industry is really hurting for folks to just recognize it and know that it is a pathway.
Interesting. Very good. I would like to offer this up. We are at 8 o'clock, and I really, really, really appreciate everybody's time. If I don't see any more questions in the chat, I just want to thank all four of you so much for volunteering your time. You have such great stories. It was a pleasure listening and hearing your journeys. And I really hope we get, we should have everybody come off mute so we can hear everybody clap.
You.
And you really, really help our program, our mentorship program with AWA+D. And I really, really appreciate it and hope that I get the chance to see some of you in person really soon, and that you'll come back and help us out with some programs in the future. So I want to thank also everybody who attended. Magdalena, thank you for running our poll for us. And I want to just thank everybody for being here tonight and be with us next time. We don't have a program in December because it's December and we have a ton of other stuff. Please pay attention to the AWA+F, all of their information out there for their auction site to raise money for the foundation. Yay. And know that we have another program coming up in January, which is called Mastering Your Resume. And it is going to be put on by Natalie Dalton at Bespoke Careers. And she's going to tell you the best way to work the logarithm for the resume and for LinkedIn in order to find a job. So hopefully this will help everybody out. And thank you all once again. I really appreciate it. And want to just say good night and thanks again.